Welcome to the meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission for April 21st, 2022. The time is 4:30. I'm Margot Schaub and I serve as the Library Commission Affairs Analyst. This meeting is being held in hybrid format, with the meeting occurring in person in the main Library Correct auditorium and available to view or to listen to on WebEx. Members of the public can observe the meeting using the WebEx system by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling local 1-415-655-0001 and entering the following access code, 2488-336-1534. Public comment will be taken both in person and remotely by video or call-in for each item on the agenda. We will conduct public comment with attendees in the Correct first and then move to WebEx for public comment. Each comment is limited to 3 minutes unless otherwise noted. Attendees wishing to offer public comment virtually should raise their hand when public comment for that item is called. To make public comment when connected by phone, please raise your hand by dialing *3 to be added to the remote queue for the agenda item you intend to comment on. Individuals joining by WebEx should click the Raise Hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the participant panel to be added to the queue. Bill Kolb from Media Service Operations will facilitate this meeting and assist in moderating WebEx virtual public comment. Mr. Kolb will call upon WebEx attendees by name or by caller number to prompt each attendee who wishes to provide public comment. If we experience any technical issues with WebEx, we will recess and try to address the issue. Please try logging back into WebEx if there are technical issues. Library commissioners in attendance are President Connie Wolf, Vice President Pete Wong, Commissioners Ono, Lopez, and Bolander.
Thank you very much, Margot, and hello and welcome to the April 21st, 2022 meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. This is our second meeting in person since the start of the pandemic, and it's our second hybrid meeting. So it's great to see everyone here, and we welcome our visitors on WebEx. We have a very full and very exciting meeting ahead, but let us first start with the meeting with our reading of the Ramaytush Ohlone Land Acknowledgement. The San Francisco Public Library Commission acknowledges that we occupy the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples, who are the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. We recognize that the Ramaytush Ohlone understand the interconnectedness of all things and have maintained harmony with nature for millennia. We honor the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples for their enduring commitment to Warup, Mother Earth. As the indigenous protectors of this land, and in accordance with their tradition, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place, as well as for all peoples who reside in their traditional territory. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. We recognize to respectfully honor Ramaytush peoples, we must embrace and collaborate meaningfully to record indigenous knowledge in how we care for San Francisco and all of its people. I do want to thank the IT team for all of their special efforts for making the hybrid situation possible. And for those of you joining via WebEx, please know that at any point, if there are any technical challenges and you lose your connection, please try to reconnect. We will be monitoring to ensure continuous connections for all of our visitors and participants. If you have not already done so, all of the materials are available for download on the Library Commission page of the library's website, sfpl.org. So today we begin with agenda item number 1. There are 7 agenda items. This first agenda item is the discussion and possible action on a resolution to adopt findings to allow teleconferenced meetings under California Government Code Section 54953E. This is recently enacted state legislation that allows boards and commissions to hold remote meetings under certain circumstances. To hold a meeting remotely, policy bodies must adapt findings consistent with the requirements of the state legislation every 30 days. Before us is for consideration is a draft resolution adopting the findings necessary to hold this meeting remotely or in hybrid format. We will begin with public comment before our commission discussion on item 1. We remind members of the public that their comments need to address this particular agenda item only. There will be an opportunity to address general comments in agenda item number 2. Members of the public who wish to make public comment on WebEx, click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. If you have called into the WebEx dial-in number, please press *3 to line up to speak. Operations, how many public commenters do we have in the queue at this point?
Madam President, there are presently 10 people joining us via WebEx, but no commenters in the queue.
Thank you. Let us begin with people here in Correct Auditorium for public comment.
Good afternoon, Library Commission and those present. The resolution is supposed to be done with consideration of current circumstances, and I have yet to hear any discussion about current circumstances, which, as we all know, have changed in some degree. I myself am wearing a mask, and I'm glad to see it looks like everybody on the stage is wearing a mask. Library commissioners, the city attorney, the Library Commission Affairs analyst. So I'm Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. And I say those things because they're important. In a partially or fully remote meeting, people can't approach each other and say, gee, I liked what you said, or I disagreed with what you said, as they can in a fully public meeting. So, with respect in particular to this item, it concerns me a great deal that it looks as though your resolution that you're considering here allows you, without any restriction as to time, to have all the commissioners present remotely. And if that happens without any mention of timing or notice to the public, as I understand the next to last paragraph of this, that would enable you to have a remote meeting only and not have any in-person meeting. So let me read the relevant further resolved portion in the next to last paragraph. If all members of the Library Commission are unable to attend in person for COVID-related health reasons, then the Library Commission will hold a meeting remotely without providing an in-person meeting location. Let me repeat that. If all members of the Library Commission are unable to attend in person for COVID-related health reasons, then the Library Commission will hold the meeting remotely without providing an in-person meeting location. And then it goes on to talk about subcommittees, what the Library Commission can do about subcommittees, which I won't go into here. As far as I'm concerned, it's possible I could have showed up here as a member of the public and found the door closed and possibly not even a notice saying, by the way, everybody has a COVID-related problem, they're all attending remotely, and there is no in-person meeting location. I certainly think that that's very wrong. Even if all of you, unfortunately, were involved with some COVID problem, then I think that having not given the public any notice or any specified amount of notice you should say, fine, we'll open the meeting room and have public comment to monitors. I don't know what. You figure it out. But the way it stands now, I think it's extremely wrong and completely violates any reasonable participation for the public as it stands here. So I hope that you change that to make it something more sensible and certainly more allowing of public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there additional public comment regarding this item number 1?
Oh, this isn't general comment.
Seeing that there is no additional public comment in the Correct Auditorium, we will now turn to public comment through WebEx. The operations team will moderate the virtual public comment. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, at present, there are 14 attendees joining us via WebEx, and there are currently no attendees in the queue. I'll pause momentarily to allow anyone to join the queue. Madam President, there are still no attendees in the queue in WebEx.
Thank you. Hearing no further requests for comment, public comment is now closed, and we now move to the commission discussion on item number 1. Would someone like to make a motion to adopt the findings to allow teleconference meetings under California Government Code Section 54953E?
This is Commissioner Ono. I would like to make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Ono. Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Huang.
Thank you, President Wolf. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. We now move on to item number 2, public comment. Members of the public who wish to make general public comment on WebEx, click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of your screen. If you've called into the WebEx dial-in number, please press *3 to line up to speak. We will go directly to public comment from members of the public present here in the Correct Auditorium, and then take public comment from members of the public observing or listening through WebEx. We are now open for public comment here in Correct Auditorium.
Hello, good evening or good afternoon. I'm Marie Sapella, the Executive Director of Friends and Foundation of the San Francisco Public Library. It's hard to see when this fog up. So I am really happy to be here today for 2 reasons. First, the Friends Board has approved a little over $1 million in program support for the library for the upcoming fiscal year 22-23. This is the largest allocation for programs and resource support in quite some time from the Friends, and I look forward to it being approved by the Board of Supervisors in May. We're always here to make sure the library gets what it needs, particularly now to reintegrate its live programming or in person, along with the challenges of developing and the opportunities of hybrid programming to reach more families, children, and adults. So I'm also incredibly pleased for the agenda item that is upcoming, the proposed language for 25-year renewal of the Library Preservation Fund. As most of you know, the idea of this protected fund for the library originated by the community out of Friends, out of the frustration over decades of budget cutting and restrictions that left San Francisco with a rather mediocre library, lacking a significant main library, book collection, staffing, and sufficient infrastructure. Residents organized a signature gathering effort that qualified the measure for the ballot. And then, of course, it passed. And then 15 years later, again, with the strength of the community, the ideas from the librarian and all the community that loves its library, strengthened it even further, allowing revenue bonds and it helping move along the 24 branches that have been renovated and the commitment to the infrastructure. So we estimate the library budget has grown about 174% since those early days in the 1990s. And we're just really, we look forward to what can come in the future to prepare the library for the world that's coming. So we are just extremely happy. It's going to be a great agenda item. We want to thank everybody, the library staff in particular, the commissioners, City Librarian Lambert, Maureen Singleton, our board members, and the public who has twice voted to maintain their dedication to the excellent library that we enjoyed today. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment in the Correct Auditorium?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. We're independent of the library and of any library and any other library related agency. The general public comment that I had, I need to make a brief comment. The chair has been notably and interestingly particular about saying the comments have to stick with what's on the agenda. And we just heard the Friends making a long discussion about what's actually the next item on the agenda, which is the Library Preservation Fund. But I guess they get special allowances because they're the Friends. I'm very concerned about serious degradation of library services and of policies that are harmful to library patrons, library users. So first, let me say that Facebook, I have repeatedly spoken about the toxicity of Facebook. Frances Haugen testified in front of the Senate last fall and basically described that Facebook is harmful, basically puts profits over safety, and in particular the safety of kids and more particularly teenagers and teenage girls. And she, having worked at Facebook, described how she saw that they didn't care about the harms that they caused over their own profits. And yet we see Facebook over and over again as a sponsor, as a thing at the library repeatedly, like us on Facebook or in the library, at the library monthly, Get Social, and it includes Facebook and other privacy-threatening matters. And I'm also disappointed that the library has no warnings of any kind that I have seen that talk about people's risks of privacy, to their privacy and so on, through their participation and use of the web. I'd also like to say that it's a pity you don't have what you said you were going to have and what I understood you would have when the anonymous citizen last month spoke about Dr. Ray Richardson. And it seems as though everybody has forgotten that you were going to adjourn in her honor, and you're not doing it. Reduction in evening hours system-wide, and some weekends, and inaccessibility of materials otherwise available,
for your comment.
also a problem. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. Seeing that are there any further comments here in Correct? We will now turn to general public comment through WebEx. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, at present, there is one commenter in the queue. Caller 8, your 3 minutes begins now.
Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
My name is Edna James, and I have a couple of comments. I am interested in, glad to be back, and as representing the OMI, and I would like to be notified when you comment about the new about the library and what is happening with that. And thank you. I will be more active now that I'm not as sick as I used to be. So that's my comment now.
Thank you for your comment. Madam President, there's an additional commenter in the queue. Catherine, your 3 minutes
Hi.
begins now.
I'm not quite familiar with the whole library WebEx meetings, and I don't really have a prepared statement, but I did hear the friends make a comment about the Library Preservation Fund. My full name is Catherine Scher, and I just wanted to talk about urging the Board of Supervisors to please put on the ballot in November the Library Preservation Fund to continue it for the next, I think, is it 25 years? I just wanted to make that comment. I didn't know if there was a general comment section in the after you do your discussion. When I was looking at the agenda, but I wanted to get that in. So thank you. And also, I'm a volunteer on the Council of Neighborhood Library, so I feel strongly about this. And it has made a big difference. I am a native in the Chinatown North Beach neighborhood, and I'm raising a family here. So I really appreciate the library. And I was remarking with my spouse about how much the library has changed and how vital it is to continue to see it grow. And Chinatown branch is up for a renovation project, and I hope that the Library Preservation Fund can be preserved so that we can see that that fruition come to completion. Thank you. Don't want to be long-winded. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Madam President, at this time, there are no additional commenters in the queue. I'll pause for a moment to allow any additional potential commenters to join. Madam President, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Thank you. Hearing no further requests for comment, general public comment is now closed. I want to thank all the presenters, the people who made comments here in Corrett Auditorium and via WebEx. Thank you for your thoughtful comments. We are now going to move to item number 3, which is the Library Preservation Fund resolution. This is a discussion item and possible action item. We've already heard a few comments about this already. This is an important and essential item to review the proposed charter amendment to renew the Library Preservation Fund, a charter amendment that was first introduced in 1994, renewed in 2007, and now up for discussion and advancement. I now turn it over to City Librarian Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf, and good afternoon, Library Commissioners. Library staff really appreciates this opportunity to present information to aid in your deliberation regarding the renewal of the Library Preservation Fund. This presentation this evening is historically significant. It's been 15 years since the San Francisco Public Library Commission has featured the renewal of the Library Preservation Fund on the Library Commission agenda. In your package, you'll find a memo drafted by my office with background regarding the LPF, including a summary of the benefits of the Library Preservation Fund, including the 2007 renewal. This memo also outlines a comparison of that most recent 2007 renewal with the proposed ballot measure under consideration for this fall. Also included in your packets is the draft charter amendment language for the LPF renewal, as well as a proposed resolution for the Commission to consider approving, to endorse, and urge the Board of Supervisors to submit to the voters a charter amendment to renew the Library Preservation Fund on the November 8 ballot. This proposal has the support of the Mayor's office, and once the measure is on the ballot, it would only require a majority vote by the San Francisco residents to be approved. Our Chief Operating Officer, Maureen Singleton, has been working closely with the City Attorney and the Controller's Office to prepare for this LPF renewal. Maureen has prepared a presentation to give the Commission a deep dive into the Library Preservation Fund's mechanics, as well as the differences between the 2007 renewal, Prop D, and the proposed ballot measure under consideration. Maureen?
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, commissioners and members of the public. It's really hard to believe that it's already time to renew the LPF, but time seems to have a way to go by in the blink of an eye. When we were renewing this last time, my daughter was not quite 2. She's clearly a teenager now, with all the joys and challenges that come along with that. But the LPF term will end in June of 2023, so it's time to take the LPF to the voters again for renewal, and we're looking at doing that this fall. So today's discussion, just as a quick summary, will provide some background information on the Library Preservation Fund as it stands now, look at some information that on the LPF numbers over time, review the highlights of the renewal, and then end with seeking the Commission approval of a resolution urging the Board of Supervisors to put the Library Preservation Fund Renewal Charter Amendment on the ballot in November of 2022. Just an additional recap of the documents that Michael mentioned for today's discussion is his cover memo about the Library Preservation Fund renewal, the draft charter amendment that would go to the Board of Supervisors and eventually become the ballot measure, this PowerPoint, and the resolution for the Commission to consider. So as a way of background, I wanted to give you some information on the Library Preservation Fund as it stands now. The term, as you know, was last approved by the voters in November of 2007. It was a 15-year term, and it is slated to end in June of 2023. The spending priorities and authority at that time included operating the main library and 27 branch libraries, library collections and services, construct and maintain facilities, and then came with the authority to issue debt. There are 2 main elements of the Library Preservation Fund, and generally we refer to it as property tax and general fund, or the general fund baseline. The general fund baseline consists of 2.3% of the annual discretionary revenue for the city, and then the property tax component is configured at 2.5 cents for every $100 in assessed valuation of property tax. The LPF makes up the largest component of the library's budget source, and for fiscal 22, it represents approximately 92% of our overarching budget sources. Other sources can include gifts, fund balance, as well as general fund, depending upon the year. For fiscal 22, you can see that the split between the general fund segment of the LPF and the property tax is roughly 56 to 44%. So to give a little bit more information about the risk and background of the LPF and the 2 components, the general fund component, as I mentioned, is tied to the city's annual discretionary revenue. That means it can rise and fall with the overall economy. And in that vein, it can contract. The property tax component is tied to the overall assessed valuation. And as we all know probably pretty well in the city, historically property tax values have performed well, and particularly pre-COVID, extremely well. But we do have to keep in mind that there are risks and exposures out there, just having celebrated the 116th anniversary of the 1906 earthquake. So unique events like that, or changes in the workforce or macro business changes, could have some impact on the overall performance of property tax as well. I can do that, and I apologize. I do have a bit of a cold, so it may be harder to hear me. On this slide, you can see the change in the Library Preservation Fund over the last 10 years from fiscal year 12 to fiscal year 22. In this, you'll have the breakout between the property tax component, which is seen in the green color, as well as the general fund component, which is in the kind of gold or yellow color. And what you'll notice is a general growth in the LPF over time. But as indicated in fiscal 21, which was really a hard impact on the economy by the COVID pandemic, you can see the impact of the changing economy, particularly on the general fund component. So that's why it was important to call out the risks that come along with the two components of our library preservation fund. So next up, what I want to do is walk through with you the key components of the renewal and comparing what was done in 2007 as compared to the proposed renewal for 2022. What I've done is highlighted here for everyone the key differences between the 07 version and the 22 version, and I'll walk you through some of the key points right now. In 07, we have, as you know, we renewed for a 15-year term. What's proposed for this next renewal cycle is a 25-year term. The funding elements, the spending priorities, and remain the same between the 07 version and the 22 version. In 07, our minimum weekly hours were set at 1,211. In the proposed version, you'll see that minimum weekly service hours increased to 1,400. The public hearings will still be conducted in the same manner as they were with the renewal in 07 as under the proposed renewal. The key difference with this renewal cycle is with the introduction of a concept of a threshold that would freeze funding for the general fund or baseline portion of the Library Preservation Fund. If the Controller's Office, along with the Mayor and the Board of Supervisors analysts in May of each year, project an overall citywide deficit of $300 million or more, the library's allocation of general fund monies would be frozen at the prior year amount. It's important to note that other funds also have a threshold, but their threshold sits at $200 million. Just as a point of reference, those other funds include the Dignity Fund, which is through the Department of Aging and Adult Services, the Street Tree Maintenance Fund with Public Works, and the Park Recreation and Open Space Fund. Our fund, or that $300 million threshold, would be adjusted annually based on changes in the aggregate discretionary revenue. So it's not a static number. It will change over time. The key difference between the library's threshold language and those other funds is that we have an opportunity to be adjusted after a freeze period based on a 2-year recovery period. So once the threshold is no longer met, over the subsequent 2 fiscal years, the controllers would snap back the Library Preservation Fund to what the amount the LPF general fund allocation would have been as if there were no freeze. So that's important language for the library to ensure that at some point we're snapping back and we're not seeing a long-term effect of funding freeze over time. Some of the other changes that happened in the draft ordinance, draft charter, if you're looking at it, would be some language cleanup to reflect the new term of 25 years, as well as small points of clarification, but also removing some terms that are not applicable, such as references to codes that do not exist. So what's the process for the renewal? As you know well, it's beginning here with the commission discussion about the renewal. And then we will be asking, as you know, for your approval of the resolution that would urge the Board of Supervisors to place this charter amendment before the voters in November. Moving on to the Board of Supervisors phase, we would need to introduce the charter amendment to renew the LPF in May of 2022. The committee would hear it in June. That would go to the Rules Committee. and then it goes to the full board for deliberation in summer of 2022, probably somewhere in mid to late July. From there, it gets submitted to the Director of Elections, and then the final point is on the ballot for the voters to consider in November. So the final slide here is reflecting the requested action that we have for the commission tonight, which is to approve the proposed resolution urging the Board of Supervisors to submit to the voters a charter amendment to renew the Library Preservation Fund. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Maureen. Commissioners, I will only add that the impact of the Library Preservation Fund on the San Francisco Public Library's capacity to deliver a high level of service to our residents cannot be overstated. Since its inception in 1994, thank you, Friends of the Library, and with the renewal in 2007, the San Francisco Public Library has been transformed into one of the leading urban libraries in the world. Dedicated, predictable funding from the LPF has enabled the San Francisco Public Library to be strategic in our investments and become the highest-rated department of city government ever. I appreciate your consideration of the prospective action this afternoon to approve the resolution urging the San Francisco Board of Supervisors to place this charter amendment renewing the Library Preservation Fund for 25 years on the November 8 ballot. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate your presentation, Maureen. That was really wonderful. And you make it look easy, but I also know behind the scenes, our colleagues in the city attorney's office and the controller's office and the mayor's office have been incredible partners, as well as many members of the community through the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. So this is really a great effort of bringing everyone together to really promote the library in its future. So I'd like to now open it up to public comment before we have our discussion, commission discussion on this item number 3. This is your opportunity to focus your comments on this agenda item. And we will begin with public comment from members of the public present here in the Corrett Auditorium. And concluding that, we will take public comment from members of the public observing or listening through WebEx. So public comment is now open.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. I'm sure you'll hear all the reasons that more money and guaranteed income for the library is good. And in general, we are very much in favor of well-funded libraries in general, and this one in particular, as well as funding for books and services for the public, according to the very lovely slogan of our library here, free and equal access, and then it goes on from there. First of all, I want to say that there have been I would say some historical inaccuracies with respect to what we're hearing about the history of this. The original Library Preservation Fund said that there was to be the operation of 26 branches and a main. There's since then one more, with a priority on books and open hours for any monies that follow that. That was completely changed by 2007 Proposition D, which basically took the enthronement of those two priorities off the list and made the money available for anything, including what is one of the favorite library things to do, which is construction, and permanent ability for the Friends to constantly seek money from the public to furniture, fixture, and equipment. A kind of a permanent employment for the Friends and opportunity to look for money. The percentages that they turn over to the library and so on, that's a whole nother story. But the enthronement of books and open hours, which is what the public greatly values, was thrown off the blocks with the 2007 measure. And it was enabling basically anything over a base period to be used entirely for construction and bonds and so on. It would have allowed all the money from the Library Preservation Fund, if the library so chose, to be used for construction, had it not been for the Library Citizens Advisory Committee and our efforts to at least put a floor on what could be spent for construction. And that was eventually put in to that measure. There's a range of things that unfortunately happen when there's guaranteed income, and that is apparently considerably less review of what the library is doing. We've had a continual diminution of the number of days that the library has open evenings. Evenings right now have been cut back an hour, and there's a whole range of access that's been harmed as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other further public comment from the Correct Auditorium?
Hello, I'm Michael Vincent Danella Mercanti from Friends of the Library. And I just want to say, frankly, I think it's so cool that we have legislation like this. This is not like other cities. There's not places that have a commitment to kind of public service and public good as much as we do. And I think the LPF is a good way to champion those values. I mean, growing in income inequality in the city, it's harder to have places where people can gather and not have to pay anything and not have to, it's just, I love it. I do want to echo, like you mentioned, Maureen, this is a generational piece of legislation. This is like the next time the LPF will be up for renewal will be 2048, and I hope we're all in this room together again, hopefully joined by a couple more library advocates, people championing the SFPL, and yeah, really excited for this kind of landmark piece of legislation. Like how lucky we are to be like here right now and deciding the future of this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other further public comment here in the Correct Auditorium? Seeing no further public comment here, we will now turn to a public comment through WebEx. The operations team will moderate the virtual public comment. If you are using the WebEx interface, click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. If you have called into the WebEx dial-in number, please press *3 to line up to speak. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through. Thank you.
Madam President, there are currently 6 commenters in the queue. Sarah, your 3 minutes begins now.
Thank you. Commission, I'm the board chair of the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. And I wanted to speak and share my pride in our wonderful library. I'm so proud of our librarians and the materials and the programs and the way we provide the fantastic services and information to every neighborhood in the city. We've been through a hard period of time, and I think we've just done a wonderful job with it. So I wanted to recognize that and thank everybody. I am also speaking in support of the Library Preservation Renewal Charter Amendment. I so appreciate the work that's gone into writing this latest Library Preservation Fund text. It is the latest step in SF's great history of citizens voting to support our library and allowing it to become the award-winning civic institution it is, a leader in its field. I look forward to this Library Preservation Fund continuing that support for the next 25 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Caller 11, your 3 minutes begins now.
Hi, my name is Beth Kelly. I'm the former chair of the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. I'm a devoted user of our libraries, and I'm the mother of 2 library-loving children, ages 5 and 8. And it's difficult to overstate the value that great libraries bring to any city and the value that our amazing library brings to this city. great libraries are simply a bellwether of a great civilization. But that's kind of waxing poetic. What I'd like to talk about today is what the library means to me, which is it's just an endless source of joy. You get to pick up a stack of new releases, you go to a crocheting event at the Main, or you stream a documentary at home. And what this resolution does, and what the Library Preservation Fund does, is it will allow San Franciscans to experience that same joy for years to come. And so on that note, I urge you to support this item. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Charles, your 3 minutes begins now.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Charles Egaris, and I served as a library commissioner from 1996 to 2008. In those 12 years, I had many wonderful moments that are too numerous to describe here to you, except I would highlight two: our commission shepherding of the BLIP, the Branch Library Improvement Program, and the last renewal of the LPF in 2007. The significance, which has been spoken to here this afternoon, of this source of funding towards making our library, the San Francisco Public Library, among the finest public libraries in the United States cannot be understated. And as Bob Dylan once commented, you don't need a weatherman to tell which way the wind blows. Nonetheless, this former commissioner urges you to emphatically endorse the LPF renewal. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Rebecca, your 3 minutes begins now.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Grant. I'm a member of the board of directors of the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library and chair of its advocacy committee. You know, as you've heard, the Friends of the Public Library has fought for decades to ensure stable library funding, including in 1994, launching the community effort that ultimately led to the passage of the original Library Preservation Fund. And, you know, we've just really seen the results of changing San Francisco Public Library from a rather mediocre system to really a world-class library that we can all be proud of. And so I'm thrilled to now support the renewal of the Library Preservation Fund for the next 25 years. I mean, as you just heard, it makes up 92% of the operating budget of the library, but most importantly, it provides a guarantee of stable funding. And I think that really can't be underestimated. And it's really that guarantee of stable funding that's going to allow the library to continue to serve our city, to grow its mission, to provide free access to resources and opportunities for everyone. So I would strongly urge the commission to support the proposed ballot measure to renew the LPF and to approve the proposed resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Catherine, your 3 minutes begins now.
Hi, yes, my name is Catherine Scheer, and again, I just want to endorse the Library Preservation Fund be brought to the voters in November as a ballot to vote on. And I also want to continue on the fact that the library branch that I go to, which is both Chinatown and North Beach, they've gone through some very big transformations. And I grew up in this neighborhood, born and raised. So I want to make a comment about the usefulness of construction. As I was growing up, the Chinatown Branch Library was not as we know today. And so I must say that as a child, I don't think I really went to the Chinatown Branch Library. And North Beach Branch was pretty underutilized, and the library branch hours were just not accessible for me as a student and even as a college student. So anyway, I just want to make sure to note that once the transformation happened with it being remodeled for the Chinatown Branch Library, I actually went there quite often, and I didn't feel that there was any, stop in my services with getting books and so forth. But I did happen to use a lot more services as a result. And same with the North Beach Branch Library. Once they rebuilt it in the new location it's become like a community hub, and it's really important for the schools as well. My child grew up in the neighborhood, and he and his school use it as an extension. So I just want to emphasize how much of a great impact it is to continually update also the facilities, because it is important to change with the times. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Caller 8, your 3 minutes begins now.
Hi, this is Edna James, representing Ocean View Library. And I had one question. I didn't hear anything about the impact of the change in district election. How would that, did anybody see anything about that, the impact of that? And that's all I have to say. Thank you. And
Caller, I'm sorry, I cut you off. I thought you were done.
No, I was just saying, that I don't think I remember hearing anything. I have a hearing deficiency here, too. But the impact of the change in district election, would that have anything, in terms of changing the library, what they're planning now?
Thank you for your comment. Caller 12, your 3 minutes begins now.
Good evening. My name is Diane Gibson, and I'm a member of the board of the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library, and I am calling in to express my support along with others for this ballot initiative. This moment provides an opportunity for us all to look back and to acknowledge what the library has been able to achieve since 1994, when the LPF was originally created. And as others have mentioned, it has transformed our public library into an award-winning, acclaimed institution, providing diverse and innovative services to the entire community. This moment not only allows us to look back, but it also allows us to look forward, moving forward into what should be an exciting future for the library here in San Francisco. What we all know, though, is that stability is important to support the library so that it can continue to provide its exceptional services and to allow the library to serve the public, the entire San Francisco community, with innovation and success. Such items as guaranteed minimum hours and other services will benefit neighborhoods throughout the city. Reauthorization of the Library Preservation Fund through the proposed ballot initiative will be able to provide that stability for the whole city, we hope, and stable funding, we hope, for an additional 25 years. As a result, I thank you for your consideration, and I hope for your support of this important measure.
Thank you for your comment. Madam President, at this time, there are no additional commenters in the queue. I'll pause for a moment to give them an opportunity to join the queue if they so choose. Madam President, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Thank you. Hearing no further requests for comment, public comment is now closed. I want to thank all of the people who were part of the WebEx long distance call-in. First of all, it worked, and that was fantastic. So we're delighted about that. And I want to thank also the participants here in the Koret Auditorium. It's wonderful to hear such enthusiasm, such support, and hearing everyone's story about why the library matters to them. Every one of those instances is valued and appreciated, and we're grateful. So now we're going to open this up for commission discussion on item number 3. And so I welcome you to comment and ask questions, and I will turn it over to Commissioner Bolander.
Oh, thank you. Just wanted to comment first off, thank you very much, Maureen, for the presentation, and of course the Friends and all of the city representatives helping us out, as well as Commissioner Wolf and Commissioner Long. You guys really did a great job shepherding this through. One of the things I just wanted to comment on is the new verbiage related to temporary freeze to baseline. You mentioned that a little bit. I just want to make sure people understand that this is now common practice. This is nothing like no shenanigans or anything like that, because of course, when there's half a page, 3/4 of a page of new text, people get a little nervous. So you just go through just a little bit about how that works, because I know we've had discussions about it. I just want everyone else to have that.
Sure, definitely. Thank you for that. So as I mentioned earlier, there are funds already in existence that have threshold language in it for when the city is at a point of deficit of above a certain dollar amount. And so this has become common practice. This is what the controller's office and the mayor's office want to see in these kind of funds that have guaranteed funding for departments. They want to be able to support us, to have stable funding, but also be cognizant of the impact of the changing economy and how these departments like the library and the Department of Aging and Adult Services can be a part of the solution when the economy is tight. So again, I think I mentioned earlier, their thresholds were set at $200 million through the process of working with the mayor's office and the controller's office. We were able to set the threshold for the library at $300 million, recognizing that the first time the concept of a threshold was introduced was with Rec Park, and that's way back in 2016. So we were talking about the need to adjust based on consumer price index or inflation. So their figure is pretty close to $300 million at this point. I think their estimated value of the $200 million in 2023 at this point is about $256 million. So this is definitely the standard that's in place now. And but again, we're very fortunate because we have this recovery language or snapback language, if you will, that will allow us to get back to the point of the general fund allocation that we would be at if there were no freeze.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ono?
Hi, thank you very much. When we have an action item that everyone supports, it kind of makes it easier on us. But I do want to thank everyone who has been involved with this from the very beginning. This has been an effort, and like a couple of the speakers have said, you know, we're one of the few cities that has this type of legislation and this type of funding, and we should be proud of it. And that's another reason why we've been number one. And we still, I will still say we're number one, even if they don't vote it. Anyway,
For sure.
The other thing, I really would like to support this resolution and have it go forward to the Board of Supervisors, because I don't think I'm going to be on the commission when this expires. So this is kind of a legacy for me, but because in 2048, I think not sure where I'll be. But anyway, one of the things that someone else mentioned was that you know, this presentation gave us a little bit of the history, but also going forward. And if you notice that the number of hours that the library in San Francisco has increased from 800 all the way now to, 1,400. So that's another thing we need to be proud of. And one of the other things I would like everyone who has spoken today, and also anyone else in the audience listening, we will need your support when it comes before the Board of Supervisors and going forward, especially at the ballot box. So I'm making my pitch now. Vote only once, but definitely vote. Thank you.
Commissioner Lopez?
First of all, thank you for the presentation. It makes it so much easier to follow. I just want to say that, and for everyone who has worked on this, you know, the work that goes into this resolutions and this preservation fund has an impact that many of us don't always see on the generation of kids who are using and benefiting from libraries, and they're making their libraries their, you know, if not their first schooling, unfortunately, their, you know, their place of learning. And for me personally, I feel that this is such a crucial resolution because, like many of the speakers said, they have seen the change. They have seen it. It's not something where we are just doing something and you never see the aftermath or, the product, the end product. We're seeing libraries being renovated. We're seeing the publications that what we're offering. So I know it's a lot of work, and I know the Friends have done a lot of work, everyone here, and I will, I definitely support this resolution because one is proven that has worked, and it will continue to work because we have great staff that make sure that all of this happens. But like Commissioner Ono said, we're unique, and I'm just thinking 25 years from now, many of the people that will benefit, the citizens that will benefit from this, probably will not understand, all the work that went in, but there's a legacy that we're leaving as well. So I'm totally in support. I'm very emotional because I feel that, yes, we just have to bring it to the Board of Supervisors. Anyone can see that this is a win-win. So I just hope that, we all become advocates for this resolution. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lopez. Vice President Huang, last but not least.
Of course I would have a comment, my goodness. I mean, first, we obviously have to lead with so many thanks, right? So much work got us, I mean, just tactically on this piece of work. So, of course, the Friends who have been there since day -1 on the LPF era, right? And I think so many people don't know an SFPL without the LPF, and it's specifically because of the Friends that have gotten us here. So thank you so much for your continued support. And there were so many folks behind the scenes to push for the LPF to be better this time around, from the Friends and of course from Maureen, your office, and the rest of library staff. Thank you so much for leading the way. Look, when I was thinking about what to say tonight about this item, I have to say it really is a privilege to be able to vote on this. In 50 years, there will only be 3 rosters of commissions to be able to vote on this. And that's pretty cool. And pretty cool to be able to sit here and be a part of that. I'm being selfish here, right? But it's fun to say that, right? And so I think it's historic in so many different ways, like so many people have said, and echoing what previous points too. We've seen what happens when we invest, the other part of this is that funding is one thing, but the ability to turn the funding into something meaningful change that changes the perception of the library system in the eyes of the public, but then also providing just that much better service to the people during this time. Transparently, I was 6 months old when the first LPF was passed. I don't know what it looked like, right? What it sounds like, though, is that we've done a lot of good work, and we've earned the right to be here and to be able to, I think, vote with confidence on something like this. And the other side of it that I'm also mindful of is that it's not just the opportunity to vote on this, but it's the opportunity to continue leading. Because as Commissioner Ono said, we are #1. We are the highest rated department in the city, and we were named Library of the Year in 2018, right? We have a lot to be proud of. And I think the opportunity to do that for another 25 years is a wonderful charge for us to leave this room with. And of course, the board of supervisors vote and the ballot box and everything, right? But I'm just so proud of all of us and the community that supports us and the wonderful organizations that work with us day to day to support us in making the right investments. It's just it's a wonderful opportunity to reflect on all that we can do, and I think it's great that we have the opportunity to make good on that. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. That was everyone who spoke so eloquently and so beautifully and so passionately. And I just wanted to add a couple of comments because we began with Maureen talking about her daughter, and now we have Pete talking about still in diapers. And but anyway, I just want to say it's just so exciting to imagine where we'll be in 25 years and what the world will be like. And if we even reflect back to 1994 or 2007, the world was so completely different. But one thing is consistent in that time frame is that the library has always been a leader, has been able, this sort of, the confidence of the support has enabled it to be bold and dynamic, to take good risks, and to always keep in mind that the citizens are changing, the world is changing, and the libraries have to be one step ahead as opposed to one step behind or even side by side. So there's no question to me that the library staff over all of these years have been incredible stewards of this responsibility. And I really look forward to the opportunity for more stewardship to happen. And so we just thank everybody, and let's make the vote. So, do I have a motion?
Could I make a motion? It would be my honor to make a motion to approve a resolution urging the Board of Supervisors to submit to the voters a charter amendment at the November 8th, 2022 election to renew the Library Preservation Fund for 25 years.
And do we have a second?
I second the motion with great honor.
Thank you, Commissioner. The motion was made by Commissioner Ono. It was seconded by Commissioner Lopez.
And I'll take the roll. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Vice President Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Yay. This is a great moment. Thank you, everybody, for getting us to this point. There's still a lot of work ahead, so don't think that we're done. We were racing to the starting line with this. So let's keep going. So now we move on to item number 4, which is the talent acquisition report. And I just want to be, before I turn this over to City Librarian Michael Lambert, I just want to say, there's no question. We can have all the money in the world, we can have all the facilities in the world, but what really distinguishes the San Francisco Public Library and makes it so renowned locally, nationally, internationally, are the people who work here, who come here every day and attend to every detail to make this place such a resource for every citizen of this city. So this is wonderful to have this kind of report following this vote on the Preservation Fund. So, City Librarian.
Thank you, President Wolf. Library staff appreciates this opportunity to present an overview of library human resources, the talent acquisition function, and all the activities to get our library staffed up again as we do our part to support the city's recovery and restore core services. Our Human Resources Director, Lori Regler, will be providing this presentation. Lori?
Thank you, Michael. The Library Preservation Fund is a tough act to follow, but I will do my best. Good afternoon, Commissioners. As Michael said, I'm Lori Regler, Director of Human Resources for the Library. I'm happy to be here today to provide an overview of the talent acquisition activities that Library Human Resources has performed over the last few years to support library services following the COVID-19 public health emergency. First, I'm going to provide a general overview of our workforce and then highlight our recent talent acquisition activities. This overview of the library's workforce is background in order to provide an understanding of how our organization is organized. So we currently have 892 active employees. A little more than half of those employees, or 53%, are full-time employees, and a little less than half, or 47%, are part-time workers. This slide reflects the library's different divisions and where in our organization our employees work. 78% of our workforce, or 699 employees, are within the library's public services divisions, with the largest public services division being the branch division, followed by the main, collections and technical services, and then community programs and partnerships. 22% of our workforce, or 193 employees, are within support divisions, with the largest support division being facilities, which includes security and custodial, as well as engineering, and then IT, and followed by administration, which includes HR, finance, and research, strategy, and analytics. The numbers you see here reflect active employees in those divisions. We have 67 different job classifications at the library. So every city employee has a civil service job class they've been appointed into, and each job class has defined functions and responsibilities. The majority of our employees, or 77.5%, are in library 3600 job series classifications. That's the library professional and paraprofessional series of job classifications. The remaining 22.5% of our employees are in a variety of other positions that you see reflected on the slide: management, analyst positions, custodial, security, engineering, finance, HR, IT. So as indicated on the previous slide, the majority of our employees are in the 3600 classification series. What might that be, you ask? It's reflected on this slide here. It's the list of the different 3600 series positions. So within the 3600 series positions, which are listed here, we have professional and paraprofessional classifications. Paraprofessional employees constitute 64%, and professional employees 36% of active 3600 series employees right now. The differences between the paraprofessional and professional job classifications are briefly described on this slide. Paraprofessional employees shelve books and materials, process library card applications, perform materials maintenance, and answer routine questions. Professional employees perform reference work, cataloging, they classify and maintain library materials, and oversee library programs or a unit of the library. There's a lot more to what these employees do. This is a brief summary. This information comes from the city's job specifications for those classifications. All job classifications at the library are covered by a collective bargaining agreement between the city and the individual unions. There are 10 labor unions that represent SFPL employees, each with their own collective bargaining agreement. So the number of employees covered by each collective bargaining agreement are reflected on this slide. 91% of our workforce is represented by SEIU Local 1021. All right, now that you have some background on our workforce, I'll provide an update on SFPL talent acquisition activities, particularly during as well as we are recovering from the COVID-19 public health emergency, which has been a challenging time for everyone at the library. As one of over 100 departments of the city and county of San Francisco, the library is required to comply with all of the city's rules and processes. The city's Department of Human Resources, or DHR, is the city's central HR entity, and they issue policies, rules, procedures that we are required to follow. DHR is definitely involved in library talent acquisition activities. For example, we need DHR's approval to fill each vacancy that we have. The majority of our exams are administered by DHR, so exams are tests, and exam scores are used to establish eligible lists from which we select and fill our positions. The frequency of the examinations that DHR conducts for us are listed on this slide. Without DHR conducting these exams, we would not be able to fill our positions, so we rely on them quite a bit. The eligible lists that DHR produces for us, we use. And library HR works closely with hiring managers to conduct interview and selection processes after we have an eligible list. DHR also manages the city's job application and job tracking system. So this slide provides an overview on the various activities that library HR performs. In terms of talent acquisition, as I mentioned, library HR helps administer selection processes, collaborating closely with library hiring managers. Library HR also conducts our own examinations to help establish eligible lists for positions that are specific to our department, so beyond the 3600 series positions. We also provide other services to our department. They're listed here. Talent development activities, we coordinate training, we coordinate employee recognition engagement events, we assist with the annual performance management cycle, we perform employee and labor relations activities, handle EEO matters, leaves, reasonable accommodation, and workers' compensation. We administer the department's payroll, provide front desk services, participate in wellness committee and other committees. And there are currently 15 employees in HR, including myself. So library HR, like other HR professionals throughout the city and throughout the industry, were impacted heavily during COVID-19. During the emergency, in addition to the responsibilities I just talked about on the previous slide, we took on new responsibilities. We adapted in-person processes and forms to online ones. There was a lot of information and guidance coming out from the city that we shared with all staff, including the city's compensation and benefits plan, which changed often. We helped implement new protocols at the library, including daily health screening for employees reporting on site. We shared information about COVID testing and exposure, answered questions about return to work requirements, conducted workplace contact tracing, and we eventually had to help enforce the city's vaccination policy and track the vaccination status of all of our employees. By state law and city ordinance, all city employees are designated as disaster service workers. This means that when the mayor declares an emergency, the city may require employees to serve as DSWs during that emergency. So as you all know, the shelter-in-place order required closing libraries, and the city, through its COVID command center, activated library employees into DSW roles. So each deployment of each library staff required library HR to work with the city's COVID command center, DHR, library management, and the library staff member on their deployment. Also, during the pandemic, library HR shared resources with staff in order to provide mental health and wellness support. And we developed our own training catalog for library staff and continued to perform our regular operations. And we maintained an on-site presence at the main library throughout the pandemic. So talent acquisition challenges were presented during the COVID-19 emergency. In 2020, the city instituted a hiring freeze, which meant that positions could not be filled absent some critical need to support the emergency. That typically meant positions with the health department were easily approved. Others was more challenging. Over 63% of our workforce were deployed as DSWs at some point during the pandemic. So once libraries began to reopen for pickup service and eventually open our doors to the public, the DSW work was still needed. And it took some time to get library staff back to work for the library. The city required an additional layer of position approval. The city instituted some safety measures at the site where they conduct civil service exams, which slowed examinations down. They had capacity limits, so they weren't testing as many candidates for eligible lists. We saw almost a 5% increase in retirements during the pandemic and other separations of employees who left our organization. So that created additional vacancies. So all of these things challenged our talent acquisition activities during COVID. So not surprisingly, throughout COVID, we saw our vacancy rate increase over our 2019 numbers. And once the hiring freeze was lifted, we had a higher number of vacancies and a backlog of recruitments. As you can see from this slide, we had an average of 88 vacancies in 2019. 104 in 2020 and went up to 133 in 2021. So Coming out of the pandemic, we have our work cut out for us in terms of talent acquisition. So generally, to fill positions, there are three main methods that we use to do so. The first is reassignment, which is an internal SFPL process where employees in the same job class have the opportunity to move laterally into a vacant position. So they remain in their class, they just move laterally into a different, typically work location. The second is using an eligible list to promote a current staff member who's on that list into a position with a higher salary range than the position they're currently in. So that's where we promote a current staff member. The third way is to use the eligible list to hire someone who's not currently an employee of our department, but they are on that eligible list, so we can hire them. So utilizing reassignments and promoting from within our organization provide opportunities for growth for staff to work in different locations and to advance their career. At the same time, when we fill positions using those methods, we create other vacancies that we then need to fill. So it does not decrease our overall vacancy rate when we fill through reassignment or promotion, because it just creates a vacancy behind it. So you can see from this slide the year-by-year breakdown of how we filled our vacancies over the past 3 years. We've seen reassignments increase, internal promotions have been relatively steady, and external hires decreased in 2021, which makes sense because we didn't have a lot of eligible lists during that time. So now you know how we can make hiring choices, and it's good to have an understanding of how long it takes to fill positions. On average, over the past 3 years, using the methods I just talked about, it's taken 189 days to fill positions, and you can see the year-over-year trend here. It took 183 days in 2019, 212 in 2020, and 172 in 2021. Just to note, we calculate the time to fill from the date the position gets approved to be filled to the date we issue an offer letter. That's how we measure the days to fill. So we just reviewed the average time it takes to fill, but which method we use to fill the position definitely impacts the time to hire. So as you can see from this slide, using our two most frequently filled positions, the 3602 library page and the 3630 librarian 1, when we use reassignment to fill, our time to hire is lower than average, which makes sense because it's an internal process. For 3602 vacancies filled through reassignment, you can see that when we did fill in 2020, which was not common because of the hiring freeze, we were able to move more quickly than in the prior year, and we moved even more quickly in 2021, filling those page positions. For the 3630 vacancies filled through reassignment, it took an average of 381 days to fill in 2020, which is a lot. This is reflective of positions that were approved pre-pandemic, but then not filled until late 2020 due to the hiring freeze. But once the hiring freeze was lifted, we were able to move more quickly in 2021 compared to 2019. When we're unable to fill a position through reassignment and use the eligible list, our time to hire increases. So it's above average. So this is attributable to several of the things I mentioned earlier, including making sure we have an eligible list to use from DHR and then conducting our selection processes. So for 3602, it took 223 days to fill using an eligible list in 2019. It took us 229 days in 2021 as we tried to catch up with the backlog of vacancies. Obviously, 2020 was a challenging year due to the hiring freeze, and we had a bunch of positions approved pre-pandemic that we could not fill until the freeze was lifted. For 3630, we did a little bit better. In 2019, it took 290 days to fill using the eligible list. We didn't fill any 3630 positions using the eligible list in 2020, but when we did in 2021, we were able to move more quickly than in 2019. In terms of the numbers of positions filled, library HR has been quite busy with talent acquisition activities. We filled 168 positions in 2021, which is an increase over our pre-pandemic numbers in 2019. We hope to see even greater numbers in 2022, and we have multiple recruitments in process currently for 91 3600 series positions and for a host of other positions as well. Earlier, I mentioned recruitment's unique to the library. So during 2020 and 2021, and to date, we worked on 26 different recruitments, and some of those are listed on the slide. The highlighted ones are recruitments underway. The filled positions here on this slide are included in the counts indicated on the previous slide. I just highlight them here because these types of recruitments can be more labor intensive for the HR team due to the fact that we cannot rely on DHR to develop an eligible list. We're doing it ourselves. So moving away from classifications and time to hire, one key component of talent acquisition that we're focusing on is the recruitment process. We're working in library HR, looking at where we post our job announcements and how we're sharing those announcements. So this slide reflects some of those outlets where we currently share our job announcements. We're hoping to partner with the library's Racial Equity Committee and other stakeholders in the coming months to expand the outlets and partners with whom we share our job announcements in order to create more robust applicant pools. We're also focusing on diversity recruitment to try to attract more diverse applicants to our jobs. We're partnering with DHR's diversity recruitment team to leverage citywide resources in this area. We're participating in citywide career fairs. We hired a senior HR analyst to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion at the library. And again, we are planning to collaborate more to expand recruitment outlets, develop new pipelines to our jobs, and develop strategies to diversify our candidate pools and ultimately our workforce. Finally, library HR is always looking for ways to improve. An important component of that work is the library's Racial Equity Action Plan. Sections 1 through 5 of that plan cover HR-related work, and there are action items in each of those sections listed on this slide that relate to improvement. So we're excited about all the improvements we will make in the coming months and years. Additionally, Library HR has established an annual process improvement forum where our entire team will meet and talk about improvements, large and small, we can make to our processes and services. I'd like to take this opportunity to plug the city's Career Resource Fair, which is on Saturday, April 23rd. The library will be participating and will be held right across the street from the main library. I encourage anyone interested in working for the library or elsewhere in city government to attend. So that concludes my presentation, and I will be available for any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. Lori and her team, they do an outstanding job, and it flashed up on my social media this week that it was a year ago that this main library reopened or we had a press conference with the mayor to announce the reopening for in-person services. And today, we have all of our libraries open for in-person service, and we're at 92, 93% of our hours of operation, and that recovery, it's really a testament to Library Human Resources and their ability to get us staffed up again. So I just want to acknowledge Lori's leadership. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a fantastic presentation, a lot to digest. And we'll look forward to more comment. We're going to now open this up for public comment before our commission discussion. So we invite members of the public who wish to make, we're going to start with activity here in the comments here in Correct Auditorium, and then we will move to WebEx, people participating via WebEx. So I invite people to make their presentations. Public comment is now open on this item.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004@yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. And again, I say those things so that folks who can't walk up and say something might have an opportunity to get in touch, or vice versa. We see a lot of numbers here, but the overwhelming number is the enormous number of disaster service workers, and perhaps even worse, the huge number of departures of library workers. And we know, generally speaking, that many of the library workers are very long-term workers, very experienced folks, and that alone can make them more valuable with experience for the public. I don't know any other agency in the city that had such an enormous drafting, so to speak, of library workers. And I certainly know that it's, let's say it mildly, that not all of them were happy. And I don't know, as I say, any other agency. I don't know that the mayor's office had more than half of their people taken away for disaster service. I consider the library to be an essential operation. I think it's essential to democracy, to civics. During this time, we also had an election and a lot of very, very bad information, which the library might provide an alternative for citizens had it been more accessible to the public. We don't see what early retirements there are, or regular retirements, or separations, or people who, for whatever other reason, were having difficulties, and I think we should know. Talent is usually, as I understand it, something that showbiz uses for the people who perform. So this is a nice but PR-related kind of a phrase for talent. We're talking about staff. We're talking about, as far as I'm concerned, the best talent that I can get at the library, which is the library workers and the librarians. The average vacancy rate went up 50%. Again, I'd like to know what is with that and what happened to the folks that had to leave. I guess my time is running out. I hope that we can get full staffing soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further comments here in the Koret Auditorium? If not, we are going to turn to public comment through WebEx. The operations team will moderate the virtual public comment. If you're using the WebEx interface, click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of your screen. If you've called into the WebEx dial-in number, please press *3 to line up to speak. Operations, are there any commenters in the queue? And if so, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, there's currently one commenter in the queue. Caller 8, your 3 minutes begins now.
This is Edna James from Ocean View Library. I know the cost of living in San Francisco is very expensive, and I know we've had a turnover at Ocean View Library, but it is used by the public because sometimes people don't have, lower income people don't have the expense to buy a computer. So coming to the library is a really necessity for them to be able in touch in terms of doing schoolwork and other kinds of things. I know I use it a lot, so I hope we continue. And I don't know, as I said, I think the cost of living probably affects everything more than anything, the job itself. But we have had some turnover, but it hasn't been huge. But I can see San Francisco is an expensive place to live. And that's all my comment. But I thank them for still keeping it open. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Madam President, this time there are no additional commenters in the queue. Pause momentarily to allow potential commenters to join. Madam President, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Thank you, Operations. Hearing no more requests for public comment on this item is now closed, and we now move to the commission discussion for this item. I know Lori is here to respond to any questions that we may have, and I just want to begin by thanking you again, Lori, you and your team of 15. We know that the HR team does a lot more than just fill positions. Your role is essential, and you provide so many services to every member of the staff, and so we really appreciate your efforts. And your presentation was filled with numbers and analysis, and it was fantastic. I learned so much. And so I will now open it up for any commissioner who would like to make a comment. And we knew Commissioner Bolander would be first up.
Yes, thank you so much for all the beautiful graphs that I love so much. Just a couple things. First off, I know HR is such a huge, vital role to try to get us back to open to 100%, which is the goal. And I know you guys did a lot of great work and under a lot of duress. So just want to thank you all for that. Do you have an idea, or do you have some numbers right now on how many vacancies have been filled so far in 2022? Are we on track to do something similar? Because as I go through these numbers, roughly it feels like there's about a 12.7% still vacancy rate that we're trying to fill, and I'm just wondering how's the trajectory and if any more additional resources are required.
I think the trajectory looks good. Thank you for the question. We've filled 30 positions so far when I last checked in 2022, and we anticipate that that will continue to go up given the number of vacancies that we have. And we're starting to see eligible lists become available for our use, or soon will be available for our use. So I think we're going to trend in a good direction.
Great.
The rest of this year.
Wonderful. And yeah, keep up the great work on the graphs.
Thank you. It's not really my thing, but I appreciate it.
If you could use crayons, I wouldn't mind. I love graphs. Anyway, thank you.
Any other comments from the commissioners? Oh, Commissioner Lopez.
The graphs. I failed statistics, but I manage. I just have a question, and probably, I was thinking, based on your presentation and the challenges that we have in terms of, filling some of the positions, I was just wondering if the library offers internships that could lead to employment and some kind of, I was going to say on-the-job training, but more fellowships or internships. And if so, maybe if you're already offered, maybe, that's one way. But if not, maybe something to explore.
Thank you for that, Dr. Lopez. That is something that I think we're going to continue to explore. The library does have some internship programs, and we have library or fellows rather who work for the library. Those aren't really administered through the HR division necessarily, but there are those opportunities, and we hope to expand more opportunities, particularly under our Racial Equity Action Plan. We're going to be looking at some creative ideas for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner, or Dr. Lopez, I'll just add that the library does have some level of pipeline where we engage young people. We do have some volunteer opportunities for school-age children, high school kids. It's called Summer Squad. Furthermore, we have the Youth Engaged in Library Leadership program. You may recall we've presented on Yale before. Commissioner Ono has her Yale mask on, sporting the colors over there. So we look forward to that every summer, where we recruit high school juniors and seniors. They actually come to us now through a pipeline. It's called San Francisco Youth Works, and we have a work order agreement with the Department of Children, Youth, and Families that pays this nonprofit organization to identify young people that are interested in working at the library. So through those processes, we do have a touch point to make young people aware of careers in public libraries or in public service generally. As Lori mentioned, we have other fellowship programs that aren't necessarily administered by Library Human Resources. We have the San Francisco Fellows Program, and we've been very fortunate to secure 2 fellows for the past couple of years. And this is a highly competitive program where college graduates and now even young adults that may have been in the workforce a little while get to compete to participate in a 1-year-long fellowship with various city departments. And the library has greatly benefited from having this dynamic capacity join our organization and work on special projects. More recently, we've also worked with the University of San Francisco to host a McCarthy Center Fellow. And this is something new. These individuals can work for us 15, 20 hours a week for typically a semester and really focus on a special project. So we do have a number of irons in the fire for how we're trying to expose people to careers in the library.
Thank you. I have a follow-up. Based on the pipeline, do we have any numbers as to, and I don't know how recently the pipeline started, but I was just wondering, do we have any numbers that indicate like how many of the people that had either internship or are part of the pipeline end up being employed? Because I understand, and now, thank you for the presentation because it really clarified the hiring process, and I know that the city also, there's a component that it's not like you can do your hiring. It's a long process from what I heard. So I was just wondering, how are we seeing, or are we seeing any results in that intervention in terms of the pipeline and the fellowships and the, you don't have to answer it today.
No,
Maybe
I can certainly offer an answer. I would say I don't have specific numbers, and even if I did, the numbers would not be eye-popping positive numbers, and there's a lot of reasons for that. I will say we have had some success stories. Years ago, we worked with the mayor's office on a program called Interrupt, Protect, and Organize, IPO. And we took in 4 young people that had been justice involved. And we worked with them. They were allowed to enter the organization through an exempt position, a public services aid position, a temporary position. And at least 2 of those individuals were able to transition to permanent civil service. And I believe one of them still works for us to this day. There are challenges working in a civil service environment. We have to be very careful that we're not infringing on certain bargaining units' work when we involve people in the library. So we always have to consider how these positions are going to enhance the level of service and not take away work from any specific bargaining unit. Anecdotally, we also have a library manager here. I'm dating myself, but when I worked for a different organization on the peninsula years ago in 2005, I had a library volunteer that I was mentoring. And when I joined this organization in 2014, I was thrilled to learn that this individual was employed at San Francisco Public Library as a professional librarian. So those success stories do happen.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. That was a great discussion. Thank you, Commissioner Lopez, for bringing up the issue of the pipeline, which is really so important and so critical for all we're doing. I also do have hope that even if they don't go into the field of a professional library employee, that they become advocates in whatever community they serve on their local friends boards and support and recognize the importance of the library. So I really appreciate that. And Lori, I hope that you will go back to your team and thank them on our behalf for the great work that they continue to do and all the services they provide for the hundreds of employees who work here. And I love that this item came after the Library Preservation Fund discussion, because we could have, as I said, having the staff to really steward and lead and be bold and create new paradigms is essential, and having the resources to do that just enables them in new ways. So thank you very much to the entire team in HR and all of the people who work for the library. So now we will move to item number 5, which is always a highlight of the meeting, which is the city librarian's report. And I know we have some exciting presentations ahead, and I will turn it over to City Librarian Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf. I have a number of presentations this evening, and I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter, Michelle Jeffers. She is our Chief of Community Programs and Partnerships, and she has an update on the library's partnership with Evergreen SF and our part in the citywide multi-day celebration tied to 420. Michelle?
Thank you, Director Lambert. Let's see if I can move this. Okay. I'm Michelle Jeffers. As you know, I'm the Chief of Community Programs and Partnerships. I was hoping to talk to you today for 20 minutes, but I'll be briefer, and I will not get lost in the weeds. Okay. Really, I'm here to tell you how stoked I am to talk about this initiative, Evergreen San Francisco, which is a joint public-private partnership that is going on citywide to bring cannabis culture out of the park and into our neighborhoods and recognize how important they are to our neighborhood businesses and culture in the city. When they approached us last month, we thought we'd be dopes not to participate, so we jumped right in. Especially because our previous, some of you big readers there know, our previous On the Same Page selection, which was Home Baked, My Mother, Marijuana, and the Stoning of San Francisco, that was actually the inspiration for this citywide initiative. So we were happy to be part of this pop party. So working with our amazing librarians, we pulled something together. It is actually happening this very week. We pulled it together to really highlight some of our work. So let me take you through. We started with, we got the ball rolling with last Saturday's History Center workshop, Hands-on 420 History, that was held in the History Center. We had a handful of history buffs show up to go through the archival papers, articles, photos, ephemera, all that kind of stuff to tell the story of marijuana in San Francisco, from its criminalization in the 1930s as a narcotic to its counterculture credentials as the grass of choice at Golden Gate Park during the Summer of Love, to its acceptance for medicinal uses that were absolutely necessary during the AIDS crisis of the 1980s. And finally, let me be blunt, to its full legalization statewide, thanks to the work of many San Franciscans, including Brownie Mary and Dennis Perrone. Tomorrow, we'll be offering our own small business presentation spotlight with San Francisco table hoppers Marcia Gagliardi. She has a new business, and she will talk about her own cannabis business and her journey as a small business owner, and also give advice on how to microdose cannabis for wellness. And then on Saturday, we'll be tabling out at Fisherman's Wharf with home-baked author Alia Voles. As this Fisherman's Wharf, in case you haven't read the book, was her mother's old stomping ground for selling sticky finger brownies. And we'll be sharing library love and supporting a live author talk right at the Crab Plaza at Fisherman's Wharf. Here are the partners in Evergreen San Francisco. The partnership has resulted in some remarkable media coverage for the library and all the organizations working on it that are highlighting our books and our archives, and the fact that the library as a partner seems to be a big media sell for a lot of people. And of course, only in San Francisco does the Chamber of Commerce and the Office of Economic and Workforce Development get involved to celebrate cannabis culture through a week of events. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up, we have Kate Patterson, our Director of Communications with Exhibitions Highlights.
I feel some pressure to go fast. This is not going to be as funny. But I'm Kate Patterson. I'm the Director of Communications. And in case you're confused, in my capacity, I also oversee the exhibitions team, which consists of a team of 3 right now. We have Senior Curator Joan Jasper, Senior Preparator Jesse Dutton-Kenny, and Exhibition Designer Hannah Gribbets. And we had our Senior Curator Everett Erlandson recently retired in February after 22 years years, and we're currently seeking to fill that position. So I'm going to walk you through our spring season and highlight the great exhibits and shows we have here at the Main. First up is More Than a Wall, and this is located in the Jewett Gallery right across from the Corrette. It features works by photographer David Bacon of the border region, and they were taken over a 30-year period. And from his perspective, each year at least 300 to 400 people die trying to cross the U.S. in search of a better future for themselves and their families. And this is really an attempt to broaden the discussion and the views of this area and the communities that live on both sides of that border. And it was really important for me when we agreed to take this exhibit on that we offer didactics in both English and Spanish. And we have a wonderful new Spanish translator on our team who's been doing some outreach. And so we've gotten the word out to the Spanish language media. But it's not all the time that we do that. So I think it's really special to be able to offer a full experience for people who speak Spanish. Up on the third floor in the African American Center, we have Black Excellence, Black Invention. This exhibit explores the legacy of the thousands of Black inventors who made life easier for individuals, businesses, and communities through meaningful contributions and inventions. Inspired by the Black Excellence bookmark celebrating Black inventors created by Dr. Carolyn Ransom Scott, the display uses library materials and archival resources to show how Black invention is joyful and resistant. It comprises a central exhibit at the African American Center in the Main, and also includes reminders of Black invention in the world around us at all library branches. So for example, in the elevators, you'll see a little plaque in some of the elevators. Some of them have been borrowed, I would say. They tell you that an individual named Alexander Wise invented the elevator, automatic doors. So thank you, Mr. Wise. By celebrating Black invention, we hope to inspire the next generation of inventors and motivate them to remember that Black excellence and genius is responsible for some of the world's greatest technological and social achievements, from the traffic light to the super soaker to the peanut and much more. I want to give a shout out to Shauna Sherman, Natalie Enright, and Naomi Jelks, who helped make this exhibit possible and realize Dr. Ransom Scott's vision. And also encourage you to pick up the bookmark. It is fascinating to learn what has been invented through the ages. This one is so fun. This is in the Hormel Center and also on the third floor. The Coquettes, Acid, Drag, and Sexual Anarchy is on view through August 11th. And this celebrates the avant-garde psychedelic theater troupe's 50th anniversary in conjunction with the original members Fayette Hauser's recently published pictorial history by the same name. As Hauser fondly recounts in her book, our métier was high drag. We were what we wore, and we wore a lot. We brought all that we were becoming and creating at the time and put it onto the stage. Our lives and the stage became one. It's a really fun show. I feel like it's an only in San Francisco story, and one that I learned recently is known throughout the world. Also, I want to give a shout out to Christina Mitra and Kevin Darling of the Hormel Center. They've put together an unbelievable public program series in conjunction with this exhibit, so please be sure to check that out. Next up, we have Her Story Too, the legal history of Chinese American women. And this is a rare and unusual look at the history of Chinese women in the U.S. starting in 1848. Many Chinese women immigrated to America to pursue a better life, gain personal freedom, and further their education. This was curated by Dr. Chang Si Chen, a phenomenal and highly accomplished woman in her own right, and Michael's sometimes girlfriend. Not really, no, strike that from the public record. But I have to say, there was an opening event for this here, and it was so moving to see so many incredible members of the Chinese community assembled, so many incredible women leaders come together to basically share these important stories which really have helped shape America. So this is on the third floor, and it is around the atrium. We have in the Also in the Chinese Center coming up on May 1st, in honor of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we have Fighting for the American Dream, APIA, World War II military gold medalists. This is a small display that showcases pictures and videos about Chinese American World War II veterans and the Congressional Gold Medal they received. Yes, they received all received the same medal. And it is presented in collaboration with the APIA Biography Project and the Square and Circle Club. And it includes some short videos about that history. And then also, some of these are really small, but I just want to point out that the exhibitions team has just done amazing jobs maximizing the space here at the Main so that almost every nook and cranny has something enriching. And a lot of these exhibits are conceived by the librarians who are, I think, amazing curators and really bring different perspectives and look at things that you would never think to highlight in an exhibit. So I just want to applaud their efforts. And this one, I think, is a good example of that. This is sustainability in times of scarcity from World War II to the pandemic. And this basically looks at this idea that the United States is a land of plenty and opportunity. We have tremendous agriculture, supermarkets, restaurants. We have a slow food movement, and culinary industries seem to show supply far outpacing demand. But also, the United States is also a country with food deserts and a home to many families and individuals who are unable to afford the basic groceries. This exhibit begins with World War II rationing and follows food movements in the United States to the present day. Also, the Main Library is a platform for people who may not be able to get a show in a traditional gallery. There's, it's a relatively low barrier to present work here, and our exhibitions team provides the technical expertise to help artists realize a little exhibit, which is very special for them. They may not otherwise have the opportunity, and I think this is an example of one of those. This is Wild Forest, an art exhibition by a photographer named Christopher E. Corman, and it's a really meditative experience. He's spent many decades immersing himself in nature and capturing those quiet and still moments of nature, and he is brought this to the Stegner Environmental Center on the 5th floor. Okay. The Years of Living Dangerously, Humor in the Times of Real Trouble. This is now located outside the History Center on the 6th floor. And this was curated in honor of National Humor Month by Andrea Grimes. And it features a selection of the work of comic artists, cartoonists, and underground printers at their most devious, undermining marauders and disasters from wartime to pandemic time. And she's done a brilliant job selecting the materials for this. And she's also curated a selection of video clips that were created during the pandemic that are very funny. So if you need a laugh, be sure to visit. And, I just want to mention that the works in the collection were drawn from the Schmolowitz collection of wit and humor in the library and library's book arts and special collections center. And this is something we do annually. We pull from this unbelievable treasure trove of comedic works. Almost done. Silent spikes following in the footprints of Chinese railroad workers. This has been a very moving show for us to have here at the Main Library. It was a community-led initiative, and it basically celebrates the largely anonymous 12,000 to 20,000 Chinese construction workers who connect to the United States from west to east. Since its opening in January, the exhibit has garnered an outpouring of public support from the Chinese community who are touched by the story of these intrepid Chinese railroad workers who helped build the country. On March 12th, the community came together for an event here at the Main where members of the public were invited to bring mementos and share stories about family members who worked on the railroad. We've also had school groups come in to visit the exhibit and hear from the organizers. And so this has been a small and mighty exhibit, and it's worth. There's people, members of the public. Every time I walk through it, I see a couple of members of the public spending time with it. So I feel like it's been very valuable. Coming up in May, we have the 16th Triennial Exhibition Calligraphia, and this will showcase original works submitted for display. Show original works from a wide range of contemporary calligraphic practices from the traditional to more experimental methods of using letter forms as a means for artistic expression. I'm putting together the press release for it, and the headline is like, not just for wedding invitations. This is actually a very diverse and a vibrant group of people who are contributing to this. It's ancient yet contemporary art form. So this, I think, will be fascinating. And this opens on May 14th, sorry. Okay. In case you missed it here at the Main, an Ode to Us, a celebration of Black hair, which received an unbelievable community reception, is on view only for a little while longer at the Western Addition branch. And I just want to take a moment to read a comment we received from a member of the public. She said, "Thank you for this celebration and history-making exhibit. Growing up, I witnessed the impact of racist acculturation enforcing so-called beauty standards that had no correlation to the real beauty of natural hair. This exhibit is timely and timeless." And that is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the comments we received in response to this beautiful exhibit that was curated by Natalie Einright of the African American Center. So we had, after it showed here at the Main, we were able to remount it in Western Addition so that that community could enjoy it. And then just briefly, coming up on May 21st, in the atrium, we have a beautiful display of textiles by Rebecca Herman and Mark Schaffner. Tree of Knowledge is a group of 3 large textile panels that invite visitors to come together in community and learning. And that's it, folks, for now. But there's more opening in the summer, so stay tuned and read the newsletter and come and see what we do and tell others to come too.
Thank you so much, Kate. And I just want to echo Kate's sentiment. She has a small but mighty team. They do extraordinary work. And I was just on the 6th floor earlier today, and I encountered an auntie with her 11-year-old niece, and they were enjoying the Silent Spikes exhibit. And it's spring break, and this family member took the opportunity to bring her niece down to the main library to learn about the Transcontinental Railroad, and it was just wonderful to see that. So thank you so much, Kate. Moving right along, yours truly is the next presenter with an update on our reopening activities. And as I mentioned earlier, it's been a little over, or nearly a year now, since we resumed in-person services at the main library. And we are largely on track to restore 7-day service in our remaining neighborhood branches that are still operating 5 days a week. Since last month, we've had to push out our April reopenings. So Golden Gate Valley branch is now slated to resume 7-day service at the end of the month. We've had to push Portola into May. We have been impacted by the city's broader bargaining efforts, which requires our staff's participation. So Portola branch is now slated to open May 28th. This slide, actually, I have late-breaking updates. Excelsior will now open on June 11th, not May 28th. We have a new branch manager that will be starting with the organization soon, so we're excited to get Excelsior back to 7-day service in mid-June. I understand we're in the process of testing for librarians. We're going to build a new eligible list. So as we are able to hire additional librarians, we're going to be able to get these branches back to 7-day service. We were targeting Noe Valley and Visitation Valley for May 28th. We'll see if we can still make that happen. Glen Park and Ingleside, we were targeting June. That may push to July, depending on the talent acquisition activities. We're always aggressive in setting our targets. And the best news that I can share with you today is that we finally have a lease agreement for a storefront space for the Mission Branch Library. So I saw a picture today. We actually have the keys. Our acting chief of branches, Rebecca Alcala Veraflor. She was holding the keys. I wish Commissioner Mall could be here. I know how important this has been to her, but we're going to get it done.
Definitely text her.
And we're targeting June to open the temporary Mission Branch Library for 7-day service, so we're very excited. And I will go ahead and announce this is going to be at 1234 Valencia Street. So this is the former Yoga Tree studio. So it was a yoga studio. Now it's going to be a temporary branch library. Very excited. Very close to the branch. It's 1/10 of a mile. So the patrons and the staff will benefit from that convenience and familiarity. I want to acknowledge Maureen and her facilities team for working with real estate and making it happen. And I also want to acknowledge the branch division and the Mission Branch Library staff. They've been troopers. They've been operating for the past few months. It's unclear where they were going to be posting up or for how long and when they would be moving into the new space. So it's wonderful to have some finality and security with where we're headed. So thank you, everyone, for your patience as we've navigated the challenging real estate market. So as we've continued along the path to reopening for 7-day service, our monthly foot traffic has been increasing. As you can see on the far right of this slide, our foot traffic jumped to nearly 250,000 visitors in March. So this represents an 18% increase from February. Needless to say, this is our highest number of monthly visitors since reopening nearly 1 year ago. And we're seeing roughly about 55,000 visitors a week now. This slide shows our circulation trends dating back 2.5 years. As a reminder, the physical circulation is represented in orange and the digital circulation is represented in blue. The percentages show the monthly share of each type of material circulating. In March 2022, we hit a significant milestone. We circulated over 1 million for the first time since February of 2020. Approximately 55% of that circulation was physical and 45% was digital. Physical circulation is now back to approximately 2/3 of the pre-pandemic levels, while digital circulation remains higher than it's ever been. So this slide shows just physical circulation dating back to last year's reopening, and you can see the significant bounce up to nearly 557,000 items circulated in March. Physical circulation correlates very highly with foot traffic, so the busier we are inside our libraries, the more physical circulation we see. This slide shows digital circulation, which remains on a slightly downward trajectory recently as physical circulation has been recovering. We saw approximately 450,000 digital checkouts last month. A steady increase in visitors means that the number of public access computer sessions has also continued to rise, reaching between 900 and 1,000 sessions per day. These are individual authenticated sessions on our equipment. We smooth this data using a 5-day moving average here. So the peaks and valleys that you see represent the variance in usage during the week. Looking at Wi-Fi, you can see the red circle on the far right of the graph. There you can see that the daily number of connections are starting to increase at the beginning of this year, going from about 5,000 connections per day throughout all of 2021 to about 7,000 in March of this year. So that represents about a 40% growth rate in Wi-Fi over the last 3 months alone. This slide makes me very happy. In closing, I want to highlight that we're bringing back the heart and soul of the library with the resumption of in-person story times inside our library locations. This is a huge milestone for us. We've been anxiously awaiting the relaxation of the public health order to allow for this activity to resume. With the end of the mask mandates in schools and in public facilities, we felt more comfortable offering our bread and butter early literacy programs again. So I'm delighted story times have been restarted in the main library Fisher Children's Center in early April. And this is the first such activity inside this facility since March of 2020. So the main library is offering 3 story times weekly currently. One in English, one in Spanish, and one in Cantonese. So those are bilingual. And it's been a gentle launch so that families and caregivers can feel comfortable. We have air purifiers and lots of space to distance. And we're hoping by June we'll be closer to our pre-COVID levels of service as we continue to get staffed up. So that concludes the reopening update. But on another hugely positive note, it's my sincere pleasure to announce the promotion of Naomi Jelks to the position of Racial Equity Manager for Public Services. Naomi started her new position earlier this month. She's already hit the ground running. She's joining our executive leadership team in the Office of the City Librarian. As Racial Equity Manager, she's also a key member of our Public Services team with the other Public Services chiefs. She's going to be leading the development and implementation of our public-facing Racial Equity Action Plan, Phase 2. Naomi is a seasoned SFPL veteran who started in the organization in 2010 as a part-time adult services librarian. She began her career at the Linda Brooks Burton Bayview Branch Library, where she was mentored by the late Linda Brooks Burton and also our CTS manager, Alice Chan. Alice works in collections and technical services. Sorry about the acronym there. So it was under their tutelage that she developed a deep understanding of how to create Black affirming public programs for the library. She also served as the African American Center librarian and later promoted to be the center's program manager. She has also served as the adult engagement coordinator for the Community Programs and Partnerships Division. She was unable to be here in person this evening, but I know she is with us in spirit virtually. So congratulations out there, Naomi. We have another exciting announcement, but for this one, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Operating Officer, Maureen Singleton.
Thanks, Michael. I am super excited to ask you to join me in welcoming Mike Fernandez to the CFO position for the San Francisco Public Library. Mike's first day was this Monday, and he's already hit the ground running with lots of activity. He will be, as obviously CFO, managing the budget development process, the management process, but also overseeing general accounting activities, contracting activities, everything that we do to help facilitate the amazing service provision that happens for our frontline staff. Mike comes to us from the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency, MTA, most commonly referred to, where he served as the project controls and support manager for the last 5 years. He started with the city as an analyst for the Mayor's Office of Public Policy and Finance, and there he was reviewing budget submittals from departments and focused in on construction and development. From there, Mike moved to the San Francisco Department of Public Works, where I had the pleasure and privilege of working with him for my 2 years I was at DPW. And he worked over at the Operations Bureau, overseeing their budgets, procurements, grants, and working closely with their accounting unit. So those are the folks that are out there repairing your streets, cleaning your streets, the folks who come here and do maintenance and repair along with our engineering team. So it's a lot of work to help oversee and manage on that budget side. Mike has, over that time period, he built and led a team of clerks and analysts and created a flexible team that they were responsive to a fast-paced environment for a department like Public Works. He moved over to MTA and also built a great team there working with analysts and engineers who provide oversight to help enable the delivery of capital projects, including the $346 million and counting Van Ness Improvement Project. So
Wow.
that's quite an endeavor there,
Wow.
and I'm super happy to see that done. Mike is a graduate of UC Berkeley, and that's where he discovered his calling for public service. And he went on there to have a minor in public policy, went from there to get his graduate degree in public policy from the University of Southern California, earned a scholarship degree, or the Dean's Merit Scholarship, and awarded a Community Development Fellowship program with the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So Mike's connection to the libraries goes way back to his childhood. As a child of a single working mother, the local library represented a safe after-school spot for him, a quiet weekend refuge for him and his siblings. And he knows now, as a parent himself, it was a quiet refuge for his mother. His first work-study job at UC Berkeley was in the library mail room, where his primary mail activities were actually moving the books between the various libraries and binding services. Mike lives with his wife and his daughter in Oakland, as well as their tortoises, Phil and Shelley. And so I'm super happy to have him as part of our team. And Mike, I don't know if you want to come up here and say a few words to introduce yourself to the commission and to the community. So thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Maureen, so much for that warm introduction. And thank you also, Michael Lambert, for having me. Good evening, President Wolf, commissioners, members of the public who are here and online. So excited to join the team here at the San Francisco Public Library. I know my predecessors here have built a really strong team, and I'm really just honored and blessed to take over and lead the team that is really thought so highly of. As someone who's worked in public service for some time, you know, it definitely does not go without notice how much library staff have been helping out during the pandemic. The dedication is truly impressive. So you all deserve it, all the credit you should be getting. As Maureen mentioned, I have a long history with libraries, working in the library mailroom at Cal. And it's always, for me, the library has always played a critical role in connecting people, not just as a learning hub, but also being able to provide needed resources for folks, as well as the stories and information that we really think of as a traditional library. And then I just want to also say, as a commission, you all have a very strong reputation for providing sage guidance and strong oversight, which is needed to run really a world-class organization like the San Francisco Public Library. I appreciate the opportunity and look forward to serving the city in my new capacity and working with you all. So looking forward to it all. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mike. Congratulations and welcome aboard. And that concludes the city librarian's report.
Well, once again, you didn't disappoint. Thank you.
Nice
So,
graphs, too. Love the graphs.
Before we turn it over to comments and questions from the commission, we will open public comment. And we'll begin with a comment from members of the public present here in the Corrett Auditorium, and then move on to those members of the public observing or listening through WebEx. So public comment is now open.
Thank you. Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I hope that the person speaking from the ocean view is listening to what I'll have to say about the reopening and the deficiencies that the library is increasingly creating for those who don't have access to a computer or good access to a computer from home. More and more of the materials are either minimally available as books and maximally available as ebooks. We see sometimes one book version and 5 different electronic versions. And now more and more and more of them are not available as a book at all, and only electronically available. And that means that all of the so-called vulnerable populations, minorities, poorer people, older people, those with difficulty who are not proficient in English, those are the ones that a city report and the census also says have the least access of all those who have not got good access from home or any. Those are the ones that have the least. And they're being left behind, they're being abandoned with the library's acquisition policies more and more. Additionally, the reopening has chopped basically from every branch the 8 to 9 o'clock hour, cutting the evening hours from 9 o'clock closures to 8 o'clock closures. What does that do for folks who are working multiple jobs or even one job? What about folks who want to come on a weekend? Why weren't the weekend hours the first ones to be restored? Those are the ones that people have routinely, through your own surveys, said that's what they want the most. I appreciate the lovely cannabis toke that Michelle gave us, talk. And I want to say it's interesting. Quite a few years ago, I was doing some research and wanted to learn more about the Cockettes. I came to the library in the old location and got a very dismissive response from the librarian about the Cockettes. Very dismissive. I won't go into details, but it's interesting how things have changed. And with respect to the book referrals with all the exhibitions, I'm very disappointed routinely to see very little reference to book and reading materials related to the subject. So for example, when we have the Black Excellence bookmark, I haven't been able to see anywhere references to where those people were researched and what books there are about them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further public comments here in the Correct Auditorium? Seeing that there are no further comments here, I turn it over to operations to have public comment through WebEx. The operations teams will moderate the virtual public comment. If you're using the WebEx interface, click the raise hand button in the lower right-hand portion of the screen. If you've called into the WebEx dial-in number, then please press *3 to line up to speak. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, at this time, there are no commenters in the queue. I'll pause momentarily to allow potential commenters to join. SMA, your 3 minutes begins now.
Hi, this is Susan and Lenora, Mike Fernandez's wife and daughter, and we just wanted to call in to say how proud we are of him and that we love the library, and thank you for all the work that you guys do for the community.
Thank you for your comment. Madam President, at this time, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Comments, request for comments, public comment is now closed. And we now move to the commission discussion on item number 5. I just want to thank our city librarian, Michael Lambert, for his wonderful overview and presentation. We had 4 different presentations today. Evergreen, Michelle, you really did it. What can I say? Kate's presentation on exhibitions, I understand she had to leave, but it was kind of overwhelming to realize that there are 9 exhibitions currently on view, 3 more that she presented in the pipeline, and I know dozens more coming up over the course of the year. Michael's, your presentation on the reopening schedule, I know that there have been fits and starts, but I think that hearing from Lori today from HR gives us a better understanding of what the obstacles have been to really push forward. And it's amazing how far you've gone, and we still have a little bit more to go, but I really appreciated that kind of new kind of understanding. And finally, wonderful with the new staff. It kind of does the best of all, which is promoting from within with Naomi, which is always a wonderful opportunity and sets a new pattern and gives inspiration to all the staff that they can be acknowledged for their contributions. And then, of course, it's great that that the library is enticing people from other departments who want to leave where they are and come to the library. So kind of the best of 2 things. So thank you for that. And I now invite fellow commissioners if they have any comment.
I can't top Mike's family, no.
Commissioner Wong, Vice President Wong.
I'll just say very quickly a very warm welcome to Mike and Naomi. I think I speak for everyone here. We're very much looking forward to your partnership and all the impact that you're going to make on both SFPL, but then also the city and county of San Francisco. And Mike specifically, look, you got big shoes to fill on the budget stuff, but we're looking forward to your leadership as you work with us in the future through these cycles. So again, welcome.
Yeah, we're delighted that Maureen has one less job.
I'm sure Maureen is delighted too.
Any further comment? No. Okay, then we will conclude item 5. Thank you again to the staff for the extraordinary work that you continue to do each and every day. We now turn to item number 6 in the agenda. It's a discussion item with possible action to approve the minutes of the Library Commission meeting of March 17th, 2022. We will begin with open public comment before our commission discussion on this item. Public comment is now open here in the Corrett Auditorium, and we'll follow up with the WebEx.
Peter Warfield, is the mic on?
Yes.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com. And P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. In general, this looks like a tremendous whitewash of any criticism of the library or the library's functions, and you seem to be getting more intense about it. First of all, there was a member of the public, a very widely respected and longtime person, who told you about Dr. Ray Richardson, and there was quite a little bit of agreement about the need to close in her honor. This was somebody who founded Marcus Books. We learned, and there was a whole range of material that he said about her accomplishments, almost 20 years at the Black Studies Department at San Francisco State University, and 12 and a half years or so as a library commissioner. And yet you have completely left that out of those details, many more details out of what he had said about her, and also a comment by Commissioner Wolf, President Wolf, thanking the public for the comments about Dr. Richardson. So that's just an example of one of the things that you've left out. I spoke strongly about the omission of the Facebook comments that I had in previous minutes, completely omitted. I've spoken about electronic materials getting purchased more and more, and not only being more and more, but the impact. They are more available at times than the book version, where there's a book version with a wait list. The electronic version is available. So the library is pushing people into electronics. Basically, the statistics are biased because there's more availability. And in many cases, more and more now, it seems that there's no book version at all. So if all you give people is electronics and well supply them with electronics, the claim how wonderful they are and how popular they are is at best dubious. And we see from the book and the electronic version statistics that books are still very strong and increasing with respect to the recovery. There's a lot of details, unfortunately, that I can't mention in further detail. The time is almost up. Unfortunately, you seem to be willing to silence the public through your simple acceptance of these very deficient minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any more, further public comment here in the Corrett Auditorium? If not, then we will go to, we'll ask operations and turn to public comment through WebEx. Operations, if there are any commenters in the remote queue, could you please begin to put the commenters through?
Madam President, there are presently no commenters in the queue. Pause momentarily to allow commenters to join. Madam President, there are no commenters in the queue.
Further request for comment. Public comment is now closed. And we now move to the commission discussion on item number 6. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 17th, 2022 Library Commission meeting?
I so motion.
Commissioner
second.
Bolander made the motion, and Vice President Huang seconded it.
And I'll take the roll. Please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Commissioner Ono?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Now we turn to item number 7 on the agenda, which is the adjournment of the meeting. And today we are honoring Joan Jackson, San Francisco Public Librarian, and I turn this over to City Librarian Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf. I appreciate this opportunity to pay tribute to a retired member of the San Francisco Public Library family, Joan Jackson. You all have a copy of Joan's obituary in your packets, and library staff appreciates your consideration in acknowledging Joan during adjournment today. Joan Jackson was a beloved mother and aunt who passed away at age 84 on March 7th, 2022. She is survived by her children, her son Neil, and her daughter Nicole. According to the obituary, Joan's love and devotion to her children was rivaled only by her dedication to her 30-year career as a public librarian and branch manager with the San Francisco Public Library, serving our diverse community. Joan's loving and gentle spirit, clever wit, and deep appreciation for lifelong learning, literature, music, and the arts will live on through her family and friends. So thank you for your consideration of taking action to adjourn this meeting in memory of Joan Jackson.
Thank you very much, City Librarian. We will now be open for public comment. If there's anyone here in the Koret Auditorium who would like to make public comment on this agenda item, number 7, adjournment, in honor of the former San Francisco Public Librarian, Joan Jackson.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Certainly we endorse closing in honor of a librarian. I'm not sure, but I think she was on the Council of Neighborhood Libraries, and that might have been in her retirement, but I seem to have recalled her there. So that's another contribution that she made for the library. I do think that it has been a tradition for you to close in honor of somebody who was a former library commissioner or in some other way contributed very much to the library. And since you didn't do it last time, and it's been a tradition for you to basically accept the word of especially as reliable a person as the anonymous citizen who brought your attention to this last time. And I guess I thought that I heard from the city librarian that he would provide some biographical information. But now that we've passed it once, and now it's not on the agenda tonight, it's a big disappointment. But I'd like to ask you to close as well in honor of Dr. Ray Richardson. She was a library commissioner for about 12 and a half years. She was chair of the Black Studies Department at San Francisco State University for nearly 20 years. She had a range of contributions, including starting Marcus Books, which is quite famous. And if I can read properly from my notes, she was a terrific speaker. She, well, in any case, it would be a shame to leave her out, having not done the usual thing, which is just simply to accept closing in your adjournment last time when the anonymous citizen brought it to your attention. I usually ask you to consider not adjourning until you have put on your agenda regularly what you used to have and what many places have currently, and what I think you should have, which is your contributions to what you would like to see on future agenda items. That is something that you have an opportunity to do when you have an agenda item like that, and it's worthwhile for the Library Commission and the library. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any further comments here in Corrett Auditorium? We now turn to operations to allow public comment through WebEx. If there are any commenters in the queue, please begin to put the commenters through.
Madam President, at this time, there are no commenters in the queue. We'll pause momentarily to allow potential commenters to join. Madam President, there are no additional commenters in the queue.
Operations, hearing no further requests for comment, public comment is now closed. We now move to the commission discussion. I just want to, before we vote to adjourn, I just want to thank the incredible IT team who made all this possible today and always. We really appreciate your attention to detail and making all the necessary planning and consideration to make this so seem effortless when we know it wasn't. And just want to thank Margot for her contributions, and of course, City Librarian Michael Lambert and Chief Operating Officer Maureen Singleton. Thank you very much. This was a monumental, momentous meeting, and we're just all enormously proud to serve. I just want to thank my fellow commissioners who gave such inspiring, passionate, intelligent, wise comments and counsel. So thank you for your contributions. So would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
Commissioner Lopez makes the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Ono seconds. We have a motion from Commissioner Lopez with a second from Commissioner Ono.
And I'll take the roll. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Vice President Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolander?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously, and I get to do this. The meeting is now over.